welcome to this deep dive. We've got some interesting source material today.
We certainly do. It looks like an analysis based on recent reporting. BBC News from June 6, 2025 is mentioned.
Right, and it's all focused on that, very public dispute that flared up between Donald Trump and Elon Musk recently.
Exactly, a real intersection of personalities, politics, and finance.
So our mission here, for you listening, is really to sift through these sources and pull out the key insights, specifically on how this event hit the markets.
Yeah, the focus in the material seems to be squarely on Tesla stock and Bitcoin.
Okay, let's get into it then. Let's unpack this.
Sounds good. It's quite a situation when these worlds collide like this.
Definitely. So, according to these sources, where did this particular flare-up begin? What was the origin?
The reporting suggests it kicked off when Elon Musk publicly criticized a government spending bill, a bill that Donald Trump supported.
Ah, okay. And it wasn't just a simple disagreement, was it?
No, not according to this analysis. It escalated pretty quickly. The sources mention personal attacks, accusations flying back and forth.
And did the timing play a role? The sources mention anything about the broader context making it more impactful?
They do, yeah. The analysis highlights that this all happened amid already heightened political tensions.
Right.
And that kind of environment, tends to make markets more sensitive to these kinds of public spats, especially with figures this big.
That makes sense. So, from a market perspective, why does a fight between these two matter so much? What's the core reason highlighted in the sources?
Well, it really boils down to Musk's influence. It's huge, not just in tech with Tesla and SpaceX, but increasingly in finance and, politics too.
So the concern was?
Investor confidence in Tesla. That's a key point the sources bring up. This dispute immediately raised questions there.
And it wasn't just about maybe him being distracted, right? There was more to it.
Correct. The reporting also flagged potential worries about increased scrutiny on his government contracts.
Which are vital.
Absolutely vital. Critical for SpaceX, obviously, but also relevant for some aspects of Tesla's business. The sources specifically pointed to negative public sentiment around the whole thing as a factor, too.
Yeah, you can see why. As CEO, so closely tied to his companies, getting into a very public, personal, political battle, investors might naturally get a bit nervous.
Exactly.
Did the sources give any historical context? Like, have Musk's past controversies shown similar market effects?
Yes, they did provide some perspective there. The analysis notes that previous incidents involving Musk's public statements, and there have been a few,
He's known for them.
He is. They've often caused short-term dips or volatility in Tesla stock, but the impact tended to be relatively short-lived.
Okay.
So the sources suggest this history provides sort of precedent. It hints that market disruption from this kind of event might be temporary.
Interesting. So focusing specifically on the sources we have, who are the key players actually affected by this market-wise?
Well, number one, according to the analysis, was Elon Musk himself, and by extension, Tesla as a company. They faced that reputational risk and the potential contract scrutiny we talked about.
And investors.
Crucially, yes. Investors in both TSLA and BTC. The sources reported they expressed caution.
Caution stemming from?
Concerns about Musk's focus perhaps being diverted, and anxiety about how the whole spat might tarnish Tesla's brand perception.
But the sources also seem to indicate the impact was fairly contained, didn't they?
That's right. The reporting was quite explicit that the effect on, say, Trump's political base was limited, and political parties weren't really central to the market reaction stemming from this specific disagreement.
So the market reaction was laser-focused?
Yeah, very much tied to assets closely linked to Musk, based on what these sources say.
Okay, let's get concrete then. How did the numbers actually move? Starting with stocks, what happened with Tesla, TSLA?
The sources point to volatility in Tesla stock, specifically in pre-market trading right after the dispute went public.
Driven by those investor concerns we mentioned.
Exactly. The analysis links it directly to that, investors reacting to his public actions and potential fallout.
But, and this seems key from the sources, it stabilized quickly.
It did. That's a major takeaway in the reporting. The stock stabilized fairly rapidly.
Suggesting what?
Suggesting the market, processed it quickly and decided the fundamental impact on Tesla's actual business was probably limited. The initial shock was there, but maybe not seen as a long-term game changer.
Okay. What about the wider market, the big indices like the S&P 500? Did this cause broader ripples?
According to these sources, nope. Minimal reaction in the major indices.
Which is telling, isn't it?
Very telling. It strongly suggests that while this was high-profile news, its market effects were pretty isolated, confined mainly to assets directly tied to Musk, rather than triggering wider market anxiety.
All right. Let's shift to crypto, Bitcoin specifically. Musk has obviously had influence there before. What did the reporting show for BTC?
It did show some minor fluctuations in Bitcoin, and the sources do link that movement to Musk's known, shall we say, influence on crypto sentiment.
But it wasn't dramatic.
No. The analysis notes that overall sentiment in Bitcoin stayed cautious, and they attribute that caution more to the broader regulatory uncertainty hanging over crypto generally, rather than this specific dispute being the main driver. So yes, some ripples because of the Musk connection, but within an already cautious market context.
And other asset classes. Forex, commodities, energy. Any noise there, according to the sources?
No, the reporting found no significant impact there. It really reinforces the idea that the effects were confined quite specifically to assets closely associated with Musk.
That picture of a sharp but contained reaction seems to match the timeline the sources laid out too. What happened immediately, like in the first few hours?
Yeah, the timeline is useful. And that immediate window, say T plus 0 to T plus 4 hours after it broke, that's when the sources pinpoint that pre-market volatility for Tesla stock, clearly driven by the first wave of negative sentiment. And at the same time, Bitcoin saw those minor fluctuations, again, linked to Musk's influence.
And then, looking a bit further out, say the next day or two, T plus 4 hours to T plus 2 days.
Over that slightly longer short-term period, the analysis shows Tesla stock stabilizing.
As the market digested it.
Right. As investors had more time to evaluate the actual fundamental impact, which seemed limited. Bitcoin also stayed cautious during this time, according to the sources, without major price shifts directly tied back to the Trump-Musk spat. The initial jolt faded fairly fast.
Okay. So pulling all this together from the sources we've looked at today, what's the main takeaway for you listening right now? What can you learn from this specific event?
Well, I think what it really highlights based on this reporting is just how much the actions and words of these really influential public figures can create ripples, even personal or political comments.
Especially in specific markets.
Exactly, particularly for assets closely tied to them, like a company's stock, Tesla in this case, or cryptos where someone like Musk has built up influence. It just underscores that market moves aren't only about fundamentals.
Right.
Sentiment, perceived risk, things driven by these public figures, they play a real role in valuation and volatility.
It's a good reminder that the human element, public perception, it's all baked into market dynamics, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And the sources even gave us a kind of watch list.
Yeah.
Things to keep an eye on going forward related to this.
They did, yeah. The analysis suggested keeping tabs on any more public statements from Trump or Musk, obviously.
Makes sense.
Also, monitoring any U.S. regulatory updates, especially around those SpaceX and Tesla government contracts. Of course, keeping an eye on Tesla's next earnings report, Q2 2025, was mentioned, and just general Bitcoin market sentiment indicators.
Because these could interact with the themes from this dispute.
That seems to be the implication from the sources, yes. These are areas where future developments might connect back.
Okay, so let's recap this deep dive. Based on the BBC reporting and the analysis provided, this public Trump-Musk dispute around June 6th caused immediate, but quite contained, volatility in Tesla stock.
And some minor fluctuations in Bitcoin, driven by those concerns over brand perception, potential contract issues.
But crucially, the sources stressed limited impact on broader markets like the S&P 500, suggesting a very targeted reaction.
Exactly. We've basically taken the information provided and outlined the immediate and short-term market reactions just as described in those sources.
And really, it all brings up a pretty important question for you to think about. How much does the public persona, the political involvement of a CEO like Elon Musk, truly factor into the long-term fundamental value and risk assessment of his companies by investors?
Yeah, that's a big question.
It's definitely something worth mulling over as you navigate all the information out there.